Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Future Salespeople's Sales Round Robin. This week, Mr. Guest and I have cooked up something exceptionally tasty for you all. It's getting paid to actually validate your product market fit. And what that actually means for many companies, Alex, is fishing. Isn't that about right?
Yeah, or drag netting, where they're just trying to catch anything that moves.
But that's exactly it. And that's really kind of the focus of the conversation today. And it's quite appropriate quote here from Mr. Henry David Thoreau. Many men go fishing all their lives without knowing that this is not the fish that they're after. And what future salespeople typically sees from organizations early stage to around even Series B in some capacities, they're going out and they're fishing with a dragnet. They're actually not going out with an intention about trying to capture a specific type of fish with their business development efforts or specifically their sales development activities. This means that they aren't going out in the market understanding what type of fish they'd like to eat for that dinner tonight, where or what pond they should be fishing in, and what type of lures or lines that they may be actually using to go ahead and capture that type of fish. What we believe and what we've seen as success for our customers here at Future Salespeople and throughout our almost 20 years of startup sales experience is you can't use a dragnet to actually come away satisfied with your meal every night. If you want to eat salmon, if you want to eat trout, you need to first and foremost know where to fish, what lake, what pond, or ocean, depending upon what you're trying to capture, you should be fishing in. You need informed hypothesis. Second of all, you need to know what type of bait, what type of lures, what time of day to actually go out and acquire those fish. And from there, once you have that bit of information, you're going to start going ahead and testing, going ahead doing controlled tests to go ahead and find the best and most optimal way to consistently get that tasty fish, whether it's salmon, trout, or whatever it may be, every single night of the week, versus getting something like carp or bullhead. Alex, how are we doing so far?
I think it makes total sense. Ultimately, one of the ways that we start to test and measure and validate our informed hypotheses are around those revenue sprints. Very similar to product development, we see most revenue functions, systems, processes, activities as being a type of product that your organization provides. So why not have a 2-week sprint in which you can treat it very similar to product development, product increments, that agile development style. We have those informed hypotheses. We have this rapid sales development cascade that we go through with most of our clients. So they're coming to us with a known problem that meets a large total addressable market. So this could be all of the waterways in all of the world, the oceans, the streams, the rivers, what have you, maybe even some bathtubs that are filled up. And then they also understand the solution that they provide to that total addressable market.
Right.
Where we see things start to slip is that if you build a value proposition just purely off of that large market, it gets watered down, it gets whitewashed. It might be something that really isn't going to drive enough value to engage what you think your ideal customer profiles are. It's certainly not then going to be able to have a distinct, finite, valuable use case for the buyer personas that you're going to engage throughout that process. So once you've really drilled into the oceans, the bodies of water that you are starting to fish in, those ideal customer profiles, and then also the fish that you're going after, those buyer personas. And again, you're going to be engaging multiple buyer personas in any sales activity. Then it's easier to pick apart the channels that you're going to be reaching out through, the timing of those channels. Is it AM, PM? Is it around lunchtime? Is it late in the afternoon on Friday? I know that's your and I's personal favorite for sales development hours.
As well as
exactly. And then to your point, that timing is going to drive the messaging. That's going to drive that value that you cash in during that call to action, to jump on the phone, to have them fill out a form, what have you. So the biggest first step here is, how do you build that ideal customer profile? Again, we think people go way too wide with this. Most organizations try to start with the total addressable universe of opportunities and just batch and blast different messaging out to see what sticks. And then
once they
pick up,
they're going to throw that line in. Keep going, keep going. Hope I get fed.
once they start to see some success, they start to see some business come in, then they try to pick apart the noise. But then you're going back to that iterative process of, well, is this actually what we should be going after? So you're almost burning a cycle where we like to jump straight to the case at hand. Another thing here is that you want to have finite or distinct ideal customer profiles as part of your hypothesis. We see people try to put together too many things. As that relates to industry, not all CRMs, for example, are created equal. A CRM that serves B2B customers versus B2C customers are going to be totally different. So you want to treat them as such. Then you start thinking about market segment. Most organizations love the dollar amounts that are associated with enterprise, but that also means longer deal cycles. And if you don't close enough deals early and often, then your startup might not be around for very much longer. So taking a look at things that are lower down in a market segment, those deals are going to move faster. You're going to have fewer buyer personas. It could be a better fit for you, but again, it's something you want to validate. And then the third criteria is kind of this X factor, and it's different for everyone. Sometimes it's going to be based off of region. So you probably don't want to, as a startup, sell globally, because that means that you're going to have customers all over the world. That's difficult to support. You're going to be selling into different business cultures. So you might want to hone that down to maybe just the United States if you're here in the US, because you know that business culture, they're within your time zones. It's going to make your lives a lot easier. It could also be things like business model, the commercial relationship that you're looking to set up with them, or some other criteria that is material impactful to your business. And again, this is part of what you're testing in those informed hypotheses. Don't go beyond more than 3 or 4 things, because then you could get too narrow and you might be cutting out too much of your total addressable market. So
you may never actually have a fish.
You may never see a fish. Yeah, you might be fishing with peanut butter and jelly, and that's just never going to work for some fish out there. But there is this balance. You don't want to have too much, but you also don't want to get too narrow. So we recommend 3 or 4 different elements, 2 of which are always going to be the specific industry and the segment, and then you can add 1 or 2 criteria. When doing the same activity for buyer persona, again, you're looking at essentially 3 core elements and then maybe an additional one.
Love it. Love it. Let me go ahead and drag our faces away real quickly, Alex. Let's talk about developing revenue functions as a product here, good sir.
Yeah, so this is actually going to be a bit of a teaser for the next episode. As I mentioned earlier, we think of developing revenue functions, process systems, technology integrations, all as products. They are products that either serve someone internally as a stakeholder or externally as prospective customers or existing customers. So in that, with customer profiles, as you're looking to validate these, you're looking to validate the specific industry, the segment, those X factors that we talked about, and then also those value propositions when you're reaching out to these companies for the first time. The questions you should be asking in this phase are very awareness-based. You need to make sure that your ICPs, your customer profiles, are aware that there's a problem, that there are solutions like yours in the market. You are not selling here. If you try to jump straight to it and you try to start selling in these conversations as you're validating your revenue products, your marketing products, your sales products, you will lose opportunities and it will just mess things up. Take your time. You are still going to be able to generate revenue while validating your sales products.
The one thing that I would just caution our audience against in this is don't make it me focused. We often see too many people trying to make it me focused. And I mean that by either as the person doing the outreach, whether it's an executive, a sales rep, or it's about the organization, right? The goal here is to start learning so you can really associate yourselves to the value that your product can bring to either solving a challenge, solving a need, or helping a business grow or do something better, as an example, right? So always be trying to find value and take away the focus from me, I, and we as a company in this type of situation to the best of your ability.
And if you lead with that value and it doesn't feel like you're selling in these conversations, that's how you generate your initial pipeline. That is how you start to generate your first sales opportunities that turn to revenue. So once you get through those awareness questions and you start to validate your buyer personas like we do, then you shift into these consideration questions. How would they consider a solution like yours? What would need to be evident? Where would they find your solution?
Yep.
And then that is ultimately going to drive how you form your engagement strategy. So maybe your content marketing product. What sort of content are you putting out there in what different locations? How does that tie in to the messaging that you're putting together to engage your audience? And again, never forget about the value of those different channels. For example, Andrew and I almost never recommend that you try to get an engineer on the phone if an engineer is one of your buyer personas, because most of them don't have phones. And if you do, you're probably interrupting their day. Instead, email, communities like GitHub are going to be a great way to engage them. On the flip side, if you don't try enough different channels with enough frequency, you might not get enough attention. So you do need to kind of balance these things based off of, again, your customer profiles, your buyer personas, and making sure that everything is aligned with that sales development cascade.
I love it. Let me go ahead and just tell our friends that, whoop, not assets, but Alex, this is what we feel should really help organizations really hone in their ability to fish intelligently, help them really develop a robust business development strategy that actually produces results through their sales development activities or sales development outreaches. And as you mentioned, we've already teased a part of what we want to accomplish and share next week. And it's really continuing this theme of developing a revenue function like a product itself. Modern selling is about data, it's about intelligence, it's about sprints, it's about self-reflection. And that's really in many ways, and being agile about how people go about building great products. So we're excited to share that next week. Most importantly, if you can help us out, we need you to subscribe, like, and comment these videos so we can keep sharing these videos within the startup community. We really appreciate the time. Hope you have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.